random internet person, my name is Mattie, and today I'm going to be talking about all of the language textbooks I have. And I know it may look a bit small on camera, but I still wanted to talk about the books that I have and the ones that I use a lot for the 3 different languages that I study. So instead of just awkwardly talking from behind the camera, I will come in front of the camera in a moment and actually talk about each individual book. But this is how it looks on my bookshelf. This is obviously not exclusively a language bookshelf, but my entire just normal bookshelf. If you guys want a bookshelf tour of all of my books total, not just the language ones, let me know in the comments. Okay, hello, here's my face. I'm actually gonna grab this stack of books, put it on the floor, that way it's a little easier to switch back and forth, but again, this is where they are. Yay! Okay, so I think the best thing to do would be talk about my books by language and also the order I got the books and kind of what I use them for, because while I'm not gonna be giving full reviews for each book, I will talk about what I think of each one, so rather than just me saying, oh, I own this book, I'll actually be sharing my thoughts about it, because I think that's probably a little bit more helpful to you as the viewer. So the very first book that I ever got regarding language that I just bought by myself because I was interested is this Mastering Hangul Today workbook. So this was the first Korean book I got, and as you can see, it says I finished it on August 5th of 2016, sorry. And basically this was just a practice workbook where you practice copying all the different Korean alphabet characters, and they would give you like small words to practice copying down. Really, it was just intended for you to have to repetitively write the characters, that way you wouldn't forget them. So as far as helpfulness, I would give it like an 8 out of 10. I think I paid $6 or $7 for this on Amazon, which really is pretty cheap for what it is. My biggest complaint about it is, while it does teach you all of Hangul, it does not teach you the stroke order of how to write the characters, and that kind of came back and hurt me later. So while this would be a good resource to have simply to practice, I wouldn't recommend learning from scratch with this workbook. For the record, every book that I mention I will leave a link to in the description box, and I'm not being sponsored by any of these companies or authors. This is completely my honest opinion based upon my own experience. Now the second book I bought was Korean Made Simple by Billy Go, and I've talked about this book a lot on my channel, but if this is your first time here, then you need to know I am a huge supporter of Billy Go, his books, and his YouTube channel. He is literally one of the best Korean resources out there. He spent years and years studying Korean himself. He's very kind. I've had the privilege to talk to him on social media a few times, and his books are just good, okay? You can literally buy this book with no prior knowledge of the Korean language, and by the time you get through it, you're pretty much almost like a beginner intermediate level, at least in my experience. Each chapter is just so in-depth, but yet he explains everything very simply. Hence Korean Made Simple, and there's also practice sections in it. This book does teach Hangul, it does teach the stroke order, and it has a lot of extra grammar notes as you get more advanced inside, which I loved. Definitely recommend. I've completed this book all the way through, and it is still one of my favorite resources to this day. Following that, there are actually 2 other books in this series, so they go in order and they build upon what was in the previous book. Like, they build upon the concepts and they get more complex and difficult as you go, because obviously they're meant to keep getting harder as you learn more. So I'm currently working through the second book. I think I'm only on chapter 5. But again, I still stand by my opinion. I absolutely love it. It was great. And I acquired the 3rd book for Christmas. This is the biggest one of the series. It's quite large, which intimidates me, but I know I will learn a ton. Not quite ready for it yet, but when I am, I already got a copy. And like I said before, Billy actually has a YouTube channel where he makes video grammar lessons and other things about Korea that are super duper not just helpful, but also really fun to watch. He makes his lessons really funny and just engaging. So again, recommend. So the next book I got was Korean Grammar in Use. This is the beginning As you can see, I've got lots of little page flags in here. I do not study out of this book, but I use it more as a reference kind of resource. If I learn a grammar concept from somewhere else that I kind of want more information on, I turn to this book. The next thing I acquired was Talk to Me in Korean's Level 1. This is just the lesson book, not the workbook. And I have worked through the whole thing. I am I think a level 3 in Talk to Me in Korean because I don't really use their grammar lessons all that often. While I am a huge supporter of Talk to Me in Korean and I think they do great things, I would not recommend buying these. I would recommend buying the workbooks that go with the levels. The reason is when you listen to the podcasts online, they actually have a free PDF of the lesson, and it's virtually the same thing that comes in here, minus the practice problems. There's 5 practice problems per lesson in this book. So I think it's a better use of money to buy a workbook and have more practice problems. That's just me. Again, love their content, wouldn't recommend this in particular. Next, I have Integrated Korean Beginning 1. I have worked through this entire book as well. When I finished Korean Made Simple, the first one, I wanted to use this as kind of a workbook to go back through all of the basic concepts and make sure I was crystal clear on each one of them. So I worked through this whole book. It's meant for classroom use, so there is a lot of things like speaking practice that are kind of hard to use when you're by yourself. There's also no answer key, but as a standalone kind of practice guide, I really enjoyed using it, and it's pretty small. I think it's only $14, so it's good material to have. And for Christmas, I actually asked for the next one in this series. They have a ton. This is Beginning 2. I'm going to use it in the same way. I'm gonna probably get through halfway through Korean Made Simple 2, then start working through this. It's really just extra practice to me rather than a standalone resource. I think I bought this pretty early into my Korean learning journey. I just forgot to mention it so far, but I do have a Collins Pocket Korean dictionary. So it is in both Korean and English. It's split down the middle, as you can see. I use Naver Dictionary most of the time if I want to look up a singular word, but I like having a hard copy of a dictionary just in case, just to be sure, and I actually use this as a way to see how many Korean words I know. So I've only worked up through these pages so far, but I go down the list and I check up every word I know, and that's just kind of something I like to do to see what more vocabulary I should learn. The last 2 Korean books I have are actually really new. I got both of them for Christmas, but I have had a chance to look through them and actually start using one of them, and they're both by Talk to Me in Korean. And these books I'm super excited about. So the first one is Korean Q&A Sentence Patterns, and basically the point of this book is to divide it up. So basically this book is divided up into a lot of different topics that you may encounter in your everyday life, like food, work, and school, and I think there's a couple of other sections, maybe like family and friends, I'm not for sure. But the whole point is that each little section has a question that you might get asked pertaining to those topics. It'll give you multiple ways somebody may ask you this question, and it'll give you multiple ways you can answer the question. So it's really good training for your speaking skills. They're kind of trying to show you natural ways to ask and answer questions and really just give you helpful things that you're going to encounter in everyday life. The other book I got from Talk to Me in Korean is a little bit similar. This is Real Life Korean Conversations for Beginners. So it's basically the same kind of concept where it goes through different things you might encounter in your everyday life. There's like sample dialogue, grammar breakdown, vocabulary breakdown, and the most important part is that it comes with audio files for you to listen to these natural conversations, and then you're supposed to try to read them out loud and work on your pronunciation that way. So that's the bulk of my language books, and that was all Korean because Korean is the language that I focus the most on and take the most seriously. But I do have a couple more books to show you from other languages that are newer to me as well. So I have recently officially decided to start learning Japanese. I took an interest in Japanese because I watched the reality show Terrace House, and I fell in love with the way Japanese sounded. I was like, this is so interesting, and Terrace House is actually an unscripted show, so I was hearing actual real Japanese, and I was like, wow, this is cool. Well, I only have one book for Japanese so far, but this is Japanese Hiragana and Katakana for Beginners. Basically, it's just a workbook, kind of like the Hangul one that comes with the CD, but it's really just meant for you to practice writing the characters. They give you stroke order practice, and there's a lot of like little reading practices and stuff in here as well. So I think this is a really good beginner's book. I'm not very far into it, but so far I am enjoying it, so I would recommend it. So I have some books on Chinese. The first one I got was Chinese for Dummies, and okay, I don't really like for dummies books, but the reason I got this was because I really wanted a vast overview breakdown of Chinese, like written for someone that's gonna go travel. That's really what this book is for, and honestly, I was a little bit annoyed because even as a very beginner, I felt this book was too advanced and I wouldn't recommend it. The author, to me, just goes way crazy with some crazy details when it wasn't necessary at first, and I think it's really overwhelming. But the bright side is I have the disc over there on my desk somewhere. It did come with a disc that gave you lots of practice on memorizing the tones of Chinese, so that's really helpful. I think the content of the book is good, but it's not good for a beginner. So I'm definitely going to keep it because as I progress in my Chinese, it's going to be helpful. It's just not that helpful now. The next book I ordered from Amazon, and I think I bought a used copy. I don't really remember. But this is Chinesey Every Day, and I have been following Chinesey on Facebook for a long time before I ever decided to start learning Chinese, just because I found their method of teaching the characters really interesting, so I liked seeing it in my Facebook feed. And basically the whole concept of Chinesey is they put Chinese characters into pictures to help you remember them. Let me just pull up like an example. Oh, I think I didn't tear it, it's okay. So, for example, here's the Chinese character for Queen, and they've like drawn it on a queen's face to help you associate that in your mind and not forget it. And they have lots of information on meanings and other like simplified and not simplified Chinese characters. And they just have like a bunch of like the most basic characters that you would need. And in the beginning there's like lots of information on character composition, tones, etc. And the very last book is Chinesey Workbook. That's all it's called. I thought there was something else at the top I was looking for. No, this is just a workbook of the most common 100 Chinese characters, I believe. I don't know, but it's literally just a workbook for you to practice writing these characters over and over and over and over again. So far, that's all the language books I own. I'm sure this collection will continue to grow as I learn and expand, but I'm definitely curious to know if any of you guys are studying the same languages, if you use the same books. If not, do you have recommendations for me of books I should use? Totally open to any kind of language conversation in the description? No. In the comments section. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, subscribe for usually 2 to 3 videos a week if Mattie is actually being consistent. Mondays with Mattie, Language Wednesdays, and Fandom Fridays. As always, all my social media links are in the description box. Anyway, I love you guys a long time, and I will see you on the flip-flop later.